Rapta is real, she thought to herself. Between everything she had seen from Zaid, the assassins, and even herself, she shouldn't have been surprised. But physically seeing an entire city that the rest of the world didn't know about and could not get to, it was surreal. And it had been destroyed. Who would have done this? She asked aloud. Who could have done this?
I don't know. Maybe,
said Zaid, looking around the corner and dragging her along.
I just don't know.
They were getting closer to the city wall, the ramshackle home slightly larger here, but still built with nothing more than plywood and grass. A portion of the wall had collapsed, and Kinza could see a leg sticking out at an odd angle. It wasn't moving. Bile rose in her throat, and she took deep breaths, trying to keep it down, but that just forced more smoke into her lungs. She coughed, loud enough that Zaid turned around in alarm. Whether to snap at her for being loud or to see if she was okay, she didn't know. The more she looked, the more she saw bodies lying motionless on the ground. Horror panged through her, but she could not look away. Despite the shouts they had heard and the occasional person crying, it was eerily quiet. Something felt off, even within the destruction they walked through. Her sandals were not the best footwear at the moment, and she kept tripping over stone and debris, little cuts appearing and healing on her feet. The pain was a distant thought compared to the carnage. She still could not look away from the bodies. Some were tiny, little hands covered in blood and ash. She swore she could hear whispers coming from somewhere nearby. Kinza felt the bile start to rise again and was about to ask Zaid to stop, but he said,
There!
He let go of her hand and hurried to a building up ahead. It was slightly larger than the rest, maybe the size of a small gas station, with half of the roof collapsed inward. Zaid kept his head on a swivel, peering around them before trying to open the door. It was stuck. He rammed his shoulder into the side and it burst open with a loud bang. They both looked around, but no movement came from within the smoke. Ignoring the whispers, Kinza followed him inside. At first, she could not make out anything in the room. Only half of it was accessible, the other half covered with the fallen roof. Darkness shrouded the corners, and as her eyes adjusted, Kinza noticed bottles smashed on the floor by the far wall. All kinds of herbs lay scattered around, and a few remained on the many shelves that lined two of the remaining walls. A workbench lay toppled opposite the room.
Khalil?
Zaid whispered into the darkness. Nothing at first, and then a small cough came from behind the table near the far wall. Zaid leaped over and said,
Khalil!
Louder this time. He threw the table aside and started frantically dragging back piles of debris near the collapsed roof. Kinza gasped when she saw what was under the pile. A man lay on the floor, but Kinza could only see as far down as his stomach because the bottom half was crushed beneath the collapsed ceiling. Ash clung to his face and arms, making him look like a corpse. If he hadn't made a noise a moment ago, Kinza would have thought he was dead. In fact, he still didn't open his eyes as Zaid started shaking his shoulder, trying to wake him.
Khalil!
He said.
Khalil, come on, open your eyes. What happened?
Khalil's head rolled the other direction, but he didn't speak. Zaid groaned and looked up at the fallen ceiling. Like the rest of the building, it looked slightly larger than the thatched roofs of the other huts. This one at least was made of wood and a bit of stone that was unfortunately on top of the man. Zaid tried lifting the edge, but she could see he was straining and barely made it an inch. As he released it back down, a scream tore out of Khalil's mouth at the weight. For once, Zaid looked like he was worried. Could you use this? Kinza asked, pointing to a long wooden plank that had fallen on the other side of the room. To prop up the roof just high enough. I can try to pull him out. Zaid nodded, having run out of other options. Kinza had no idea how long ago the destruction had happened, and subsequently how long Khalil had been like this, but based on the soot-stained buildings and dwindling fires, it had been at least a day. She didn't know how long someone could live like that. This was not the situation she imagined being in after all she had heard about Rapta over the past few days.